But I would like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands on which we meet today and pay my respects to First Nation people and First Nation designers who continue their care and knowledge sharing of the world. One of the concepts I've had the privilege of learning about from First Nations people is deep listening. Listening isn't so much about being able to hear, but being able to take in information and the environment around you and let it sit. So often we listen to respond. We're preparing our arguments for why we disagree with people, or we agree with them, or we're planning what we're going to say next. Deep listening teaches us to take things in, let them develop like a good cold brew before we do anything. Being deliberate and intentional. And that's really the essence of what I want to leave you with today. I want you to be deep listeners so that you are then intentional designers. I will also tell you that my slide presentation is completely irrelevant, and it's up to you what you do with that information. Let's jump back in. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. Oh, that was really good. That might have almost been everybody. I don't know, we'll see. What about if you're a designer and you know it, clap your hands. At this point, it's worth knowing, as it says on my LinkedIn profile, I'm here for my own entertainment. So thank you. You've been great. That piece of audience participation was a demonstration of the power you have as designers. I designed that introduction. The first time, there were a few earlier adopters who were right in there. You knew what to do and you were ready to show everyone else that you were keen. She's just run off on you. Oh, because she doesn't like the clapping. So I've done a really bad job of actually looking after my own dog because she doesn't really like audience participation. She can go, I'll be fine. Oops. Well, I've rehearsed that, but there was no one in here. The second time I did it, I'd given you some warning about what I expected of you, and you performed brilliantly, I might add. There were still a few holdouts, though, I reckon, the ones that don't like to be told what to do or just really hate audience participation. That's okay, I can appreciate that. The third time, even more, I reckon, but I suspect if I tried again, I will have outstayed my welcome. This is the power of design. In case you haven't felt the love enough already today, here's your affirmation. Designers are awesome. You rule the world, totally. And don't let anyone tell you otherwise. At some point, a designer has had control over everything. A designer has made choices for us about everything. Did they make those choices through a process of deep listening with intent and deliberately? There's no way to tell. And yes, we all know that there are other people that stick their noses into the design process and apply constraints. We all know who they are. They could be technology, finances, manufacturing, resources, even brand guidelines, all of your favourites. But constraints can lead to awesome outcomes. Constraints lead to innovation. A great example is the One Laptop Per Child project. If you don't know it, in 2005, an MIT professor started the project to provide affordable education devices to children in developing countries. There were lots of constraints. Financial, they had to be low cost to users and therefore to manufacture. They had to be low energy, powered by solar or even a hand crank. Imagine powering your laptop at work every day with a hand crank. They had to be durable. They had to last in hostile, dusty, hot conditions. And so overall, the project hasn't quite yielded the results of one laptop per child. But innovations like low-power devices, efficient manufacturing, mesh Wi-Fi, screens that can be seen in full sun have all been adopted into other technology. Constraint leads to innovation, which is good for everyone. So in case you've forgotten, you, the designers, have all the power. You're awesome. Accessibility can also be seen as a constraint. Presentations about accessibility often focus on the legalities, the requirements, the standards that need to be met. I don't really do those. They tend to be more about utility and a bare minimum rather than focusing on holistically designed experiences. So I want to take you back to what accessibility actually means. First call out, accessibility is not about disability. There's no magic line where on one side you need accessibility and on the other you don't. How many people wear glasses or contact lenses or corrective lenses? And how many people just put up their hand for the blind chick? Once again, my design choice for my presentation, I manipulated you into putting your hands up or putting mine up when I asked the question. Design is power. Try again. How many people wear contact lenses, glasses or otherwise? There you go. You are using a piece of assistive technology to be able to see. And I know that for the overwhelming majority of you, you don't identify wearing glasses with having a disability. Accessibility doesn't mean disability. Something has been designed for you, and in the case of glasses, very often manufactured especially for you. What a great piece of accessible and inclusive design. Are you curious yet? Look around at everything and think about its design process. Who has it been designed for? What needs does it meet? Shout out to my fellow left-handers. You'll know how much of the world isn't designed for us. If you're over 187 centimetres tall or under 155 centimetres tall, most of the world is not designed for you either. Even everyday things like the chairs you're sitting on right now. Let's look at something else that was designed at some point. Someone came up with a design for a numerical keypad. Actually, two designs. The first one, with the one on the top left, is predominantly used on phones or things like EFTPOS terminals. It generally makes sense in our left to right, top to bottom reading style in English. The second option has the one on the bottom left, so the top row is 7, 8, 9. These are common on keypads like your computer keyboard or a calculator. Which one is better, in your opinion? There is no right or wrong answer. We can argue about which one is best later, if you like, if you're that keen. But another question, how does someone with low vision or blindness know the difference? If you were thinking or said to yourself, there's a dot on the 5, you're wrong. The 5 is in the same place on both. I've been doing a bit of research, and either I'm not very good at it or there isn't enough information out there. It kind of doesn't matter which. But most of what I found will tell you that the dot on the 5 is actually about people with blindness or low vision. I'm pretty sure it is only meant for touch typists, data entry people, to be able to centre their hand on the keypad without looking. I even asked some of those famous AI assistants how blind people should tell the difference between the two, and they suggested that I should know the context of the device and therefore know which type of keypad it is. So it's all on me. There is evidence, though, that might be interesting, that the one with the one in the top right corner actually is a result of extensive user testing. It was deemed to be the fastest design at the time, even though it actually came a few decades after the layout that has the 7 on the top line. So the 7 came first in adding machines in the early 20th century. The other one came later after they actually did some user testing. But let's fast forward on this technology and into the world of touchscreens. Many of the keypads you'll use today are not physical buttons anymore. Everything's getting a touchscreen. So how does someone with low vision or blindness use a touchscreen keypad? This is where I'm going to start telling you that accessibility is actually about equitable experiences. Everything you design is going to have a human interaction component at some point. Ensuring those humans have an equitable experience is the designer's job. Accessibility and accessible and inclusive design, to me, is about creating equitable experiences. Those experiences don't have to be the same, but they should be equivalently good. Great, even. Just because I can achieve the outcome you've designed doesn't mean it's an equitable experience. So back to the touchscreens. One of my favourite topics is lifts. Lifts, at the heart of their invention, are about accessibility. They're the whole reason we have the massive buildings we do. They've turned penthouses into the most expensive real estate rather than the cheapest because of the number of stairs to climb. I've worked in a lot of large buildings in my time, and the common thing to do now is to upgrade the lifts from having physical buttons outside of the lifts or inside of the lifts to having touch screens outside of the lifts. This has apparently made them more efficient and ergo better for you and me. We're supposed to get to where we need to go more quickly, so that must be better, right? But my experience of those touchscreens is a long way from equitable. For most of these new systems, they have the touchscreen, but they'll also have one physical button. It'll probably have a wheelchair symbol on it. In one of the buildings I used to work in, you'd press the button and it would start talking to you. Press this button for the number of floor you want. When you hear the floor, press and hold the button. Okay, so I have to press the button. I used to work on the 39th floor. The same system is in the brand new building I've been working in recently. This isn't an upgrade, it's a brand new building. I'm on the 10th floor. Oh, that's a bit better, I hear you thinking. Well, no, because this building has one lift of the bank of 6 that opens to the rear. So you press the button and you get level 1, level 1 rear, level 2, level 2 rear. And these systems certainly don't appreciate people like me pressing the button quickly or aggressively. It doesn't seem to speed them up at all. Then, almost like the universe is handing me more material for this presentation, I made a new design last week. This one cheerfully told me that these lift service levels ground to 9 and press the button again when I hear the floor I want. And it began. Level 9, level 8, level 7. I wanted the mezzanine. There is a designer out there somewhere who decided it should read from top to bottom. I'd really like to know who it was. It turned what was an experience for other people of a few seconds into precisely 34 seconds for me. I recorded it for my own entertainment, obviously. That's 10 times longer for me to achieve the same outcome. And that is just one of the everyday experiences that haven't been designed equitably. I'm hoping you'll walk out of here and view lifts very differently and from a curious designer perspective. And as a bonus, there's one more example that I encourage you to try, and it's the lifts in this very building. I'm quite a fan of the bar and restaurant here at the Sofitel Melbourne, but they have their touchscreen lift controls on the inside of each lift. So when afternoon tea time comes around, grab yourself some sugar and go for a ride and figure out how would you navigate this system if you had limited vision. Come and find me and tell me if you think it's equitable. But there's good news about all of these lifts. The good news is they're all accessible. I'm not sure how someone who's deafblind manages this scenario, so I'm guessing they're not actually accessible. But because I can achieve the outcome, for me, it could be argued that they are accessible experiences. This is why I want to reframe accessibility for you to mean great experiences for everyone. And I want you to be curious about what the experiences are of people who aren't like you or who may experience the world with a whole different set of constraints. While I said earlier that accessibility isn't about disability, it is about needs. For some people, accessibility is a nice to have. It makes things easier for them. For other people, it's a must have because they can't use the thing or move through an experience without it. So what do you do now? This is where you need to seek out your most interesting users. They're the ones with the most constraints and the highest need for accessibility. If you're into bell curves and statistics, these users are likely to be your edge cases. But I don't like that analogy quite as much because it's quite 2D and linear. Someone who is an edge case in one dimension might not be in another. I prefer to think of them in more abstract ways and that they're just really, really interesting people. I put these interesting users into 3 categories. The first are those people who can't achieve an outcome you designed. Most often in design research, you're looking for people who use the product or website or ones like it to find out what they think. But you shouldn't neglect those people who aren't your customers or even can't have the experience because they're just not even in the realm of the people who you think would be your customers. Yes, it could be simply that they don't want to, aren't interested or don't like you, but it might also be because they can't use your product. I like to use cars as an example. I can almost guarantee you that no car manufacturer has ever asked a blind person about their designs. But think about it. As a driver, your attention is meant to be entirely on the road and making sure you don't hit pedestrians who walk out in front of you because they can't see you like me. All of the controls, buttons, levers, switches, etc., should be able to be operated without diverting your attention away from the road. But all we're getting in cars now are touchscreens, like the ones on those lifts. Imagine asking the blind community about tactile things and ways to differentiate buttons and switches. I think the insights would be really valuable and really interesting, even if those same blind people are not your target market and are unlikely to be driving one of those cars anytime soon. Plus, surely during testing, I'd be able to take a test drive of some description. So they're the people who can't achieve the outcome designed. What about people who can achieve the outcome, but do it in a different way? I've tried to research this example and can't find anything on it. It's possible I made it up, but it's still a good example. We've all been training self-driving cars to identify traffic lights and bicycles in those captures. We won't talk about the accessibility of those right now. But one of the other important things they need to be able to accurately identify are humans in all our forms. One of those forms are humans using wheelchairs. If we can identify cyclists, surely wheelchairs are just as easy, right? Well, did you know that there are some people who, for reasons of their own needs, propel their wheelchairs backwards, at least what we would consider backwards? This means that when that self-driving car is looking at a wheelchair, it shouldn't be making assumptions about which way it's going, because that could be catastrophic. And this was supposedly a real scenario faced by the early Google modelling. They didn't program those cars to recognise wheelchairs going backwards. So those wheelchair users are achieving the outcome designed because they've got wheelchair mobility, but they're doing it in a different way. Then there are your users who will find a completely different use case that you've never even thought of. I usually use Viagra as an example here. Viagra was designed as a heart medication. If you're not sure what the more prevalent usage for Viagra is now, Google it, perhaps not on your work computer. Actually, I'm really curious about something. Hang on a sec, just talk amongst yourselves. Excuse me, interpreter. Is there a sign for Viagra or do you have to spell it out?
I've been spelling it, but let's ask one of the deaf participants. Yeah, do you want a visual description if Phil's asking, or just...
I'm a bit disappointed that there isn't one already because I'd really like to learn it, but that's okay. Thank you. Okay, so it's once again my own entertainment. I really wanted to know that. Now you all know, you have to spell it out when you use the word Viagra. Bubble wrap is another one. Bubble wrap was designed to be a textured wallpaper. Oh my God, how much fun would that be? You'd never stop touching the walls. And on the same thing, Play-Doh was designed to be a wallpaper cleaner. Those wallpaper people are super innovative. People will find use cases for themselves because we are all innovative, and people with unique needs, accessibility needs, and disability can be the most innovative of all because of their various constraints. Easy. Those are your 3 types of most interesting users. 1, can't achieve the outcome you've designed. 2, can achieve it but do it in a different way. 3, achieve something you just never thought about. I really want you to get curious about who these people are. Go out and find them. Put the effort in. They're the ones you will learn the most from and have the most fun with and be the most entertained by. Practice deep listening, apply constraints, and go and be your best designer selves. Okay, so let's see how we ended up here now. We're going to do it one last time. If you're a designer and you know it, then you really ought to show it. If you're a designer and you know it, clap your hands. You have been great. Thank you for the entertainment. Go out and try those lifts.